A Kurt Vonnegut's Slaughterhouse-Five was first published in 1969. It's a darkly humorous look at the absurdity of war and is the author's sixth novel. It's also the book that brought Vonnegut the most acclaim and continues to be his most iconic piece of writing. A short novel arranged in 10 chapters, Slaughterhouse-Five is about the World War II firebombing of Dresden and contains autobiographical elements, as Vonnegut himself was interred in Dresden and survived the horror. But this is far from a typical war memoir. In addition to being uncomfortably funny, it employs science fiction elements, including extraterrestrials and time travel. It might seem irreverent to include sci-fi elements and crass humor in a book about a real historic massacre, but these aren't just tools to subvert expectations for a book about war. They actually help Vonnegut write about something he'd previously struggled to ever put into words. Thus, he relegates himself to a background character in his own book, and instead focuses on the life of the fictional private Billy Pilgrim. Billy is a chaplain's assistant during the war, and a successful optometrist after it. He doesn't perform any daring feats of bravery during combat, and he doesn't build his professional practice on hard work and determination, yet he is the great hero of this story because he is so painfully human. He's so human, in fact, that an advanced alien race from the planet Tralfamador abducts him to be the ideal human specimen in their zoo. Billy comes to understand the Tralfamadorian concept of time, and it helps him deal with some of the difficulties of human existence. This non-linear perception of time allows our optometrist to see in a new way, and also explains the wonderfully fragmented narrative we get to experience as Billy bounces forward and back in time. This perspective is captured succinctly in the oft-repeated refrain, "So it goes," which is peppered throughout the book, and is similar to the expression, "It is what it is," which we hear so much these days. It is a resigned acceptance of the unpleasant or unfortunate outcomes in life. It is surrendering authority or control to a larger force we can never fully understand. That sounds pretty heavy, but it's balanced against all the other stuff that makes a Vonnegut novel. Unappreciated science fiction writer Kilgore Trout's wacky plot lines for his paperbacks, all the smoking and swearing, the questionable sexual fantasies, and Chapter 4's incredible bombing sequence in reverse. Yes, it's a book about the horrors of war, but Slaughterhouse-Five is presented with the absurd humor, creativity, and biting cynicism that only Kurt Vonnegut can deliver. I have this old Dell Publishing mass-market pocketbook version, which features a cover design that matches their other Vonnegut releases. They were available as pocketbooks and in the larger trade format, and this design always has a small image at the top, a bold V down the middle, and the author and title in contrasting colors. This copy of Slaughterhouse-Five was printed in 1991 and doesn't feature any extras. It's been well read and is pretty beat up. My eyes are too old and I'm too fancy to reread cheap pocketbook editions now, so when I got the chance to upgrade to a deluxe hardcover illustrated edition, I decided to go for it. So let's do this! Here we have Slaughterhouse-Five from the Folio Society. This edition was released in 2006 and is presented in a red paper slipcase with a curved open edge for better access to the contents. The book itself has a cover designed by John Holder, featuring a black wraparound pattern with a bold red 5 on the front. This is all printed on gray buckram, a treatment Folio used a lot for covers in this era, and which I appreciate. I find that the buckram holds up better to wear than the cloth covers that they typically use today. On the spine, we note the title, the author, and the publisher name, all in red. The binding is finished with a red and black headband, and the binding itself is done well. It doesn't suffer from the tightness that I've encountered in other Folio editions from this era. When we crack the book open, we see plain medium-weight red end papers that match the color of the slipcase. The book is printed on Caxton wove paper, which comes in at slightly off-white according to color swatches. If we bring back the pocketbook edition for a brief side-by-side, we can see that the Folio Society version is obviously much bigger, with an extra 7 centimeters in height and 5.5 centimeters in width. The font is larger and much more crisp and consistent in the Folio version, and the whiter paper greatly improves readability. The introduction is written by John Sutherland, a British academic and author of the Folio Book of Literary Puzzles. In this intro, Sutherland considers Slaughterhouse-Five and wonders about its genre before exploring some of the challenges Vonnegut had to overcome in order to write it. He mentions Catch-22 and Dr. Strangelove as helping to show Vonnegut the way to the dark humor he eventually uses. He finishes his 10-page intro, which is then followed by 2 pages of footnotes, by explaining how Vonnegut continued to wrestle with the massacre that was the Dresden bombing well after the book. This introduction does assume familiarity with the text, and should not be read before the story by first-time readers. John Holder provides 7 interior illustrations here. He might be familiar to Folio fans from his illustrations in Travels with My Aunt or The Adventures of Robin Hood. He works with pen and ink and watercolor applications. His work is often character-based and tends to include humorous scenes, making him an appropriate fit for this particular title. The art is printed on a slightly toothy, thicker stock, and the images all land within 10 pages of the text they coincide with. Let's take a detailed look at the artwork now. The first illustration, the frontispiece, is a depiction of a scene from Chapter 8. Howard W. Campbell, an American Nazi, visits the Dresden slaughterhouse where protagonist Billy Pilgrim and his fellow captured American soldiers are forced to work. Campbell is attempting to recruit men for a special military unit he invented called the Free American Corps, who are supposed to join the German effort on the Russian front. The specifics of his gaudy homemade costume reveal a fantastic attention to detail on the part of the illustrator. He's got his 10-gallon white cowboy hat, his blue body stocking with yellow racing stripe, his swastika and star boots, his Abe Lincoln patch, and his custom Nazi armband. Around him are the sleepy American prisoners of war who barely listen to his energetic sales pitch before rejecting it moments before the Dresden air raid sirens howl. The second image is of 22-year-old Billy Pilgrim and his fellow soldier Roland Weary towards the end of their long march east into German territory after being captured in Luxembourg. More captured Americans join them as they get closer to the border, and they begin to see more German reserves. This fellow's having a drunk hero's picnic on his tank, and he spits at Weary as they pass. The muted colors help emphasize the bleak tone, and Holder provides great expressions for the faces here. The third illustration is of Billy sporting the ridiculous overcoat the Germans gave him after he's emerged from the shower in the delousing. It's way too small, it has a fur collar, and it looks like an organ grinder monkey keeper's jacket. The artist conveys dynamic movement in Billy's stance as he poses for the German soldiers who laugh at his absurd garb. The fourth illustration is from Billy's time as an attraction at the Tralfamadorian Zoo. He's 44 years old and lives naked and alone in captivity for a while until motion picture star Montana Wildhack is brought in to mate with him. Zoo attendance soars. In time, Montana comes to love and trust Billy. She wears her heart-shaped locket as the Tralfamadorians look on from outside the dome. The fifth image is of 46-year-old Billy after his plane crashes into the side of Sugarbush Mountain in Vermont. He's saved by a bunch of Austrian ski instructors from a nearby resort. The composition is strong here, and John Holder gets to let loose with the watercolor for the colorful ski gear. The next illustration is of a sight that greets 39-year-old Billy Pilgrim as he heads upstairs from a party in his home and flicks on the light to the bathroom. His 17-year-old son Robert, the future Green Beret, is sitting on the toilet in the dark with his pajamas around his ankles as he practices on his new pink electric guitar. Vonnegut's absurd and sometimes off-color humor is perfectly captured in this image. The final image also demonstrates an incredible attention to detail on the part of the illustrator. 2 days after the end of the Second World War in Europe, Billy and 5 of his fellow soldiers ride a horse-drawn cart through the destroyed remains of Dresden to return to the slaughterhouse and collect souvenirs. From the color and shape of the cart, to the camera and booze, to Billy's absurd blue robe, to the old man pushing a baby buggy with an umbrella frame, all the details of the description are included in this image, which is my favorite of the bunch. I'm happy to add this edition of Slaughterhouse-Five to my book collection. I happen to have the first print here, and don't know if they've released subsequent printings, but it is getting rather pricey on the secondary market. There are other high-end editions of Slaughterhouse-Five out there from publishers like Suntop, but they're often even more expensive than this edition. Still, I wouldn't be surprised if the Folio Society releases another printing of their version sometime in the future. It is very well built and will hold up to multiple readings while still looking great on your shelf. As for my old trade edition, it's going straight to the box of doom. So it goes. So I can make more room for more great books. As always, thanks for watching, and if you'd like similar content, feel free to circle back to previous videos, or keep an eye on this channel for future upgrades.